So, as you all know, Halo has kind of become the bread and butter of my channel. It's the thing that does the best, but I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys. I do not want to become a Halo channel. There is so much other stuff that I want to talk about and do, and I honestly don't want to be rooted to one thing. So, while I was looking for another game to review, I got a notification, and strange human covenant lady
Paramount
to the obsession with
Never
passwords.
understand subjecting me to adapting and projecting into a show and forsaking the game itself.
It was not a good one. The Halo TV show, which I will call Halo Plus from here on out, was such an unmitigated mess that the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 52%. And if you want to be really picky, the top critic score is 45%, but that's one thing. The other thing is that for a time, all the episodes were free on YouTube, and it was supposed to be an exclusive show on Paramount Plus. How the hell did they bungle this show this badly? This should have been a slam dunk, but instead it was an utter catastrophe like never before seen. So in this video, I'll explain the many reasons why I hate Halo Plus. Since I don't have my Paramount Plus subscription anymore and the YouTube episodes were taken down, I'll be using clips from random Halo games and miscellaneous clips when it comes to the plot. I will also be going off of memory and this plot synopsis I found. This is also not going to be a review, it's going to be more like a rant, and all music used in this video is going to be in the description down below. But before we get into the show proper, we need to do some background work. So, from what I could find on development, the creation of Halo Plus was kind of a clusterfuck from the start. So, back in 2013 at the Xbox Showcase, Bonnie Ross revealed that a Halo TV show was in development, and later on we learned that Steven Spielberg and Showtime were involved. But the development of the show was such a train wreck that it was stuck in development hell for over 6 years. 6 years. The original release date of 2015 being pushed back to 2019. During this time, Steven Spielberg would be replaced by Rupert Wyatt as director and executive producer, and in June of 2018, Showtime was given 10 episodes to make the show, and Kyle Killen was brought on to be the writer and showrunner. A few months later in December, however, Wyatt stepped down as a director because of scheduling conflicts, and in February of 2019, he was replaced by Otto Bathurst and Stephen Kane. Stephen being brought on in March of that year, and in October of 2019, they finally began filming, which means for 6 years, nothing was actually filmed because they were playing corporate hot potato with directors and scripts. But now that they had everything set, surely nothing would prevent them from finishing, right? Right? They managed to film 5 episodes, but filming and post-production were paused until 2021, which meant they had to push the release date back to 2022. So once again, they were kinda just sitting there. This is probably why the show looks so unfinished. There was a major disconnect between filming, and they were finally able to get back into it in February of 2021. And once everything was said and done, the first 2 episodes released on March 24th, which started the most painful 8-week journey of my life and many others. So with that out the way, let's get on to the actual problems with this fucking mess. Now, before we actually get into the show, we have to get into one of the biggest problems with the show. The Silver Timeline. To put it simply, the writers of Halo Plus wanted to do their own thing, so instead of creating their own characters within the canon Halo setting, they created the Silver Timeline. It will never cease to amaze me how the Silver Timeline manages to screw up so bad that it confuses the hell out of hardcore Halo fans and casual viewers alike. They did stuff that pissed off the fanbase, like race-swapping Miranda and Captain Keyes, the clusterfuck that was Kwanha's side plot, which I'm not going to talk about, and most importantly, Sergeant Johnson is nowhere to be found. They also didn't explain things either, and it's not just minor stuff, it's crucial information to the Halo lore. The Human Covenant War is never explained beyond, we're just fighting them, which just leads to the question of, why are we fighting them? There's also the fact that most of the outer colonies in this timeline don't know what the Covenant are, which unintentionally creates the biggest plot hole in the show. We're getting a little technical here, so hold out with me for a bit. In this show, the Spartan 2s were created to fight the Human Covenant War instead of insurrectionists like in the main timeline. And from a flashback with Sword and the fact that the Fall of Reach is happening in Season 2, which takes place in 2552 between July and August, this means that the Spartans were trained in 2532 at the earliest, which means what the writers are trying to tell us is that the outer colonies have not been aware of the Covenant for at least 20 years. How? This not only dilutes the Human Covenant War into what I can only assume to be a random space war, but this also makes the UNSC look dumb as hell for wasting resources on insurrectionists when they could put all of them into eviscerating the Covenant. There's also McKee, who breaks the Covenant in its entirety, but I'll talk about that when I get to her section, because McKee is a very special character, and is involved with most of the issues in the show. Speaking of characters, let's get on to the characters, and oh my god, these are some of the worst characters I have ever seen on television. Before we get to the main course, let's talk about Miranda Keyes. This is not her. Miranda Keyes is not this petty in the games. Surprisingly, the family thing between these three is canon, but it wasn't like this ever. Miranda gets pissed at her mom because she gets to look at an artifact, but Miranda herself is supposed to be an officer, and Halsey's a scientist. It just creates unnecessary melodrama that I simply had enough of by the 4th episode. But let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room involving her and Keyes. The race swapping. I'm not going to stay here for a while, but all I'm going to say is that they race swapped Miranda and Keyes while they left Johnson out of the show with no fucks to give. They took away our meal to give us table scraps. Make of that what you will. But with that out the way, let's get on to the character everyone is talking about. Jimmy Rings. This is a character adaptation on par with the fucking Dragon Ball movie. Instead of Master Chief being a silent badass, he is murdered by bad plot points that only exist for the sake of melodrama. In the TV show, instead of the Spartans knowing that they were kidnapped to prevent a civil war from breaking out, because that was the point of the insurrectionists in the main timeline, they were instead lied to and given these suppression pellets that was supposed to suppress their emotions. Now, this not only screws with Jimmy Rings, but this screws with the Spartan 2 program. Every single child in the program knew why they were there and what was at stake, because Halsey knew if she lied to them and they eventually figured it out, it would be a shit show like none other, which, surprise surprise, is exactly what happens in the show. In the first episode of the show, specifically after Quan's insurrectionist camp is obliterated, Jimmy finds a Forerunner artifact, and when he touches it, it unlocks him his repressed memories, which causes him to defy the orders to execute Quan, and for him to subsequently go rogue for an episode and a half. This leads to a ton of instances where instead of acting like a badass that he should be, he's tweaking out like an addict, and not only that, the writers double down on him not wearing a helmet by taking it off every chance they get. This gets so bad that we see this dude running around naked more than 3 times and treating Cortana, who is damn near his closest friend in the games, like utter shit. But her character wasn't spared either, and I honestly do not want to talk about it. At this point, the community was getting sick of all the bullcrap, but it hadn't gone to Chernobyl levels of bad. Well, at least until episode 8 aired. On May 22nd, 2022, at roughly 11:30 a.m., the community went DEFCON 1 when in episode 8 of Halo Plus, Master Chief goes into the prison cell of a Covenant spy, seduces, and sleeps with her, committing several war crimes while Cortana watches them like a cheating victim. What the fuck? When this happened, the community lost its collective shit entirely. This was the furthest that you could possibly get from the Master Chief as a character. But sadly, we are only at the 2/3 mark. There is one more thing I need to go over.